I'm alive.
The good thing about lives is the lack of rehearsal. That's what I like. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here today. We will be discussing various topics related to mental health. I have with me two wonderful guests. I have Emily Blastock and Mr. Daniel Wilson. Both have been on before.
Hi.
Hiya, thank you.
And they've both been interviewed on Richard Grannon and Friends, if you're interested in seeing more of them. Emily, I know you from the gym. Your thing is powerlifting, right?
Yep.
And you have a competition, pretty big one coming up soon, right?
Next weekend it's Nationals.
The Nationals.
Yeah.
You're looking forward to it?
I am, yeah. I'm really excited now.
Yeah. You feeling confident?
Yeah, confident, a bit nervous, but that's normal.
Bit nervous. Are you going down with Joe?
Yeah, there's going to be a group of us going down.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we're in Penzance in Cornwall, so it's
Lovely.
quite a bit of a drive.
Awesome. Daniel?
Hi.
Lifestyle coach, personal trainer.
Indeed, yes.
International man of mystery.
Changer of lives.
Changer
of lives on the daily.
How's it going?
It's going all right.
Yeah, good.
It's going all right. Listen, how are you?
How am I? I'm good. You know what makes me happy is usually I do these things on my own. So to actually have some company is really pleasant for me because it's just me talking into a camera and harassing poor Jacob when he's trying to do his job.
I was going to say, I'm here.
Yeah, Jacob's trying to work and I'm like, what do you think of that, Jacob? So the first topic is we're going to talk about men's mental health. So if you could show us the Paddy clip. Paddy, who does his own podcast out of the same studio at Liverpool Podcast Studios. What's Paddy's podcast called?
It's called Chatting Pony.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Paddy Chatting Pony.
Turn my mic on. Yeah, Chatting Pony by Paddy the Baddie.
Chatting Pony by Paddy the Baddie. So let's have the clip from Patrick.
I woke up on Friday morning at 4 a.m. to a message that one of my friends back home had killed himself. This was 5 hours before me weigh-in. So Ricky, lad, that's for you. But there's a stigma in this world that men can't talk. Listen, if you're a man and you've got weight on your shoulders and you think the only way you can solve it is by killing yourself, please speak to someone. Speak to anyone. People would rather, I know I'd rather me mate cry on my shoulder than go to his funeral next week. So please, let's get rid of this stigma and men start talking.
Thank you, Jacob. Do you think there's still a stigma around male mental health and asking for help?
Do you want to go or shall I go?
Yeah, you go first.
I can go. Stigma? No, I don't think there is.
Okay.
That's obviously my opinion. And what happened to Paddy's mate is an obvious, is terrible, it's awful, it's horrendous. I know people that have done the same kind of thing. With regards to there being a stigma to men being able to talk, I think men know that they can talk, but they just don't want to talk.
That's interesting. So Paddy says there's a stigma, which we would usually assume is like external. That means your community is not going to support you and be shamed for it. And you say that's not the case. I
don't think, my personal opinion is I don't think there is a stigma anymore. I think there might have been a few years ago. I said, but as it stands right now, I don't think there's an actual stigma. I think men are absolutely, they know that they can talk, but they choose not to. They don't want to talk.
I'd agree with you. What's the stigma that's internal? What would we call that? Would we just say like a limiting belief maybe, or
It's an ego issue.
Could
is
be,
it
yeah.
not?
you think it's an ego issue?
I think so. Moreover, that it's of shame that someone feels like that, or they feel like they might be able to sort it out on their own. And where's the point that you would ask for help? How many coping mechanisms do you try and have before you then are like, oh, I'm at the end of it now? Like, I feel like there's no definition maybe of where that line is.
So is this a gender thing, a gender thing as in GENDER, not an agenda, where the masculine, the way of being a man, the way of being masculine doesn't include asking for help? Do you think that's the problem?
I think so. I think there's a bit of that in a sort of undercurrent maybe, that it's a pride thing. I think that's not gender specific. I think a lot of us are like that, but I think definitely there's this idea of man that we all still kind of believe, and the man should be the one in charge, or the more confident one, or the one that doesn't have issues and sorts out all of the big issues. So maybe it's to do with that.
So you said ego and pride, and then you very carefully and wisely said that that's not solely a male issue. But ego and pride exist in women, but women wouldn't not ask for help if they felt bad because of ego and pride, typically.
Yeah, I think so. I think women communicate differently to men as well. So women like to talk more openly and freely about emotion. And I think because that's very normal for women, I think it's easier to talk about when you're not feeling okay. So maybe that line is a lot less for a woman because we talk about, especially with hormonal shifts, we're very used to that mental health cycle, whereas maybe men are not so used to where that line is for them.
That's interesting. You raised that in one of the podcasts we did last year about the hormonal shifts in women make them more predisposed to being literate.
100%. 100%. Men and women are so different when it comes to this. Men don't want the drama, basically. They don't want the drama. And if a man is telling a woman his issues, generally the woman will get offended and try to defend her position. Whereas if a woman is telling a man will try and fix it.
You mean in a relationship?
In a relationship, yeah. I don't mean generally.
With a female therapist?
No.
Because that wouldn't be very professional if she got offended.
No, I mean not in just in day-to-day life. That's my opinion.
I think it depends on the character type of the person as well. I know that myself, I'm a fixer. So I would want to fix rather than like, I talk as well as try and fix, but I think it depends on that person's.
The character type of being massively codependent.
Not anymore.
Joking, but maybe me and you share a similar thing there. It was actually a funny thing. I was on the way into the studio now, and a lady who lives in the she's younger than me, about 22 years old, lives in the apartments upstairs, and she held the door open for me as though I was going to go in there, and I went, "Oh no, sorry, I'm not going in there. I'm going here." And then she was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I'm like, you don't have to apologize.
Yeah, it's absolutely fine.
It's fine. You were being
Everything's
nice.
okay.
You were being nice. But I could see that. I just before this, I was interviewed about codependency, and that's exactly that response, isn't it? It's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for trying to be nice to you, for breathing, for existing." What would help? I mean, obviously, there's a gender issue. Is there a class and culture issue? Paddy Pimblett is from the northwest of England. His friends will probably be working class lads like himself. Do you think that's a factor in this as well? Being scouse and being dead hard and, just not wanting to...
Possibly.
Or do you think that's everywhere?
I think that's everywhere. If we go back in time and we kind of look at the gentlemen, they were just as proud. They were just as wanting to fix everything. They were just as the same as guys are now. So working class guys or upper class guys, I think it's all the same fundamentally.
Yeah.
I think environment's a big factor though as well. I think if you're surrounded by men that also talk about how they feel, and if they don't feel great or one of your friends speaks out and you also mirror that, then that environment becomes a safe place. It means that they're probably more free of speech with each other. But I definitely think generationally there's a bias as to not wanting to talk out, maybe. Slightly older generation, there's that bigger pride element, I think, and there's less awareness around mental health and,
Oh, yeah, 100%. Older guys compared to younger guys, I think very differently, I would say.
What do you mean, like the boomer generation and up? I mean, because
I would say like my dad. How old's my dad? My dad's 70. His mentality is very different to mine. And my son is 14 and his mentality is very different to mine. So there is the generation gap massively, I would say.
We're fairly emotionally literate in our male-to-male relationship, aren't we?
We are now.
Do you think we've gotten better?
Oh God, 100%. Are you messing?
We knew each other 20 years ago.
100%. We're completely different creatures now. We'd hate if we met each other now.
Yeah.
that version,
Yeah.
we'd talk about us.
And be like,
We wouldn't like us.
they're a couple of knobs.
Yeah, what a couple of bellends.
A couple of coke snorting idiots, those two are. Joking. And do you think that's just with maturation, with age, or yeah?
I think if you don't change, I'm a different guy to the guy I was 6 months ago.
Yes.
I've known you 20 years. I've known you a couple of years. I'm a fucking different beast to that guy. And I would probably say that in the short time that we've known each other, I'm different to that guy as well. So I think we're always, well, we should be developing a little bit.
So to Paddy's point there, what can we do then that would help men be more inclined to ask for help, do you think?
It's a tough one.
That's very tough.
It's extremely individual, isn't it? Like everything. What makes someone speak out when they've been abused? What makes people speak out when they have suicidal thoughts? It's very individual. It depends on the psychology of that person. Ultimately, I think it comes down to the parenting and how safe we all feel to talk about emotion and everything else. And it's praised to speak out and that you feel safe. So I think it originates from the parenting. But then as a culture now, I think it's just more talking about it, more awareness, especially in relationships as a woman. Also, making sure that your partner feels safe to open up and talk about things, get over their old trauma and their issues. I've been doing that in my relationship now. So he feels really safe to talk to me where once he did not in his past relationships. So I feel like it's my duty as well to make sure that we both feel safe. So as a culture, I feel like that's probably the best thing that we can do, isn't it?
You're a pretty good role model for where psychotherapy and psychology does well. Is in that environment in relationships. I realized after talking to you it's not fun work, it's not sexy work, but it's work that keeps the relationship together.
1,000,000%.
Which is where you can both discuss your traumas. You use the word safe a lot.
Yeah.
Which is pretty key, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
You're a strength coach. Maybe there's and Paddy's a fighter. He's a professional fighter. Maybe there's a reframing here of saying strength isn't always. Sometimes strength is shutting up and bearing a load, and there's still nobility in that for sure. And we shouldn't lose sight of that and be like the opposite is always good and this is always bad. There is strength. I mean, even in training, you go on your own in the morning to lift up the heavy thing and put it down, whether you want to or not. I'm not a powerlifter, but I know that the regime you follow it's numbers based, and the numbers don't give a fuck how you feel. I'm particularly interested how you're feeling that day. But maybe then we could also have like a reframing of it. We say, well, part of strength training is working on your weaknesses as well, isn't it? And going, oh well, my quads are weak, or my glutes are weak, or and part of that would include I remember Jocko Willink talking about it and saying in terms of the military, in certain military circumstances, if you don't report an injury, you can be punished for that. You can actually get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Because
you could get people killed. Like, oh no, oh fuck, I think my ankle's gone. Don't say anything. And then you try and sprint away.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, your ankle is taking up 4 guys because 4 guys have got to carry you out.
So the whole chain then starts to fall down. Yeah. So maybe there's I think it's obviously I work in that space and I have more of a sort of a feminine, generally speaking, outlook in that regard. I'm more interested in people than I am in things. But I wonder if there is a reframing where it could be like, okay, this is actually about strength training. This is about being strong, which includes acknowledging where you need help. You feel anxious about this. You feel insecure about that. Maybe that's the way to do it. That was what Jocko Willink was talking about. It was like the unit is only as strong as its weakest link.
Correct.
And you are only as strong as your weakest links. And maybe there is this one thing I have to bring up though. I don't like asking for help when I'm lost. And there is every fucking reason to stop.
Because you don't get lost.
I'm not lost. I'm on a temporary hiatus from arriving at my location.
You know where you are.
When I analyze it and I'm in that moment, there is something in me that feels biological. Because it's like, Richard, you teach communication for a living. go into the shop and ask them. And another voice says, don't do it. If you're a
guy
real man.
who's obviously from round here, who knows exactly where you're wanting
He
to go.
knows where you want to go.
Do you need help? No.
No, I would rather die
Seen
of
you walking around
starvation.
4 times now. No, it's fine. It's fine.
I would rather die like this, pointlessly, on this mission.
rather drag myself on my knees.
And it feels biological. I mean, that doesn't mean it is, but do you ever wonder if some of these things that like we say is like, you know, that's a social construct or a role that's imposed on us. Obviously, some of it is biological, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Do you think this?
Do you not think it's from your past experiences?
That's the big
So,
debate.
like,
Is it cultural? Is it biological?
I feel like anytime I've had an uncomfortable conversation, there's that knot in my stomach that feels like anxiety. And then you have to lean into the fear and challenge it. So I feel like it's
Or
that,
turn
isn't
on
it?
your heels and walk away.
Yeah.
Just ignore it. Doesn't matter. Goodbye.
Put it in a box.
You wanted to talk? No.
I'll just hold it down. I'll just hold
You
this
being
pain
sick?
inside.
No.
So maybe like acknowledging that helps, that there is always going to come a moment before you pick up the phone and ask somebody for help, whether it's a mate or a counsellor, where you're not going to feel good.
No, not at all.
It's a difficult conversation with your partner, as you say, where you get the knot in the stomach and then your sphincter snaps shut and you think, oh God.
Sit there for 10 minutes going,
Yeah.
I'm thirsty here.
just need to go for a walk.
Yeah, I want to leave. I did relationship counselling once in Dublin, and it got to the point where I was going to have to split up with my ex, and I was waiting for her to come home at the table, and the memory was so intense, it's like burned into my mind forever, just waiting. Not the argument that followed,
Yeah.
which was a nightmare, but it was one of many nightmares. Sitting in silence.
It's always the lead up. It's always the thought of the event, which is generally worse.
Yeah, I remember the dog shifting positions and sighing, and I was just sat there waiting for execution. Like, oh my God, we're really going to do this. So then part of that reframe as well might be like, it's courageous. It's courageous to ask for help. It actually takes courage.
I always think anytime I've ever spoke out publicly about my experiences, yes, it's horrible and painful, but I see that as true strength. I've never had a bad response.
Yeah.
I always heal through that uncomfortable shift and that uncomfortable feeling.
Right.
And the more that I know myself, that I practice it, the easier it becomes. So I expect that little like feeling.
Yeah.
And then it's all right after that.
Yeah. And then there's a positive outcome
Yeah.
that you get from that. Have you ever been in counselling?
No.
No. What would you need that for?
Need counselling? You're one of my best mates. Do I need a counsellor? Is everything okay? Not really, Rich.
Yes, Danny. This actually isn't a podcast. It's an intervention.
There's nobody here.
We're not filming.
It's a ruse.
It's just
It's an expensive ruse.
There's therapists around the corner waiting to come in. Would you ever see a therapist?
I've never really felt the need to. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I wouldn't, but I've never been in a situation, other than the many conversations that we've had, lying on the couch.
You're talking to me in the gym all the time.
Yeah.
You get it for free.
Are you okay? Not really, mate.
In between sets.
Yeah.
That's how you get your therapy, in between sets.
I just keep Apple paying you.
Yeah.
No, I probably would if I needed it, but up until right now, I've never had the need to it. Maybe, don't know. Maybe I should have done in the past. I don't know. Maybe I'm ex-military. I'm ex-foreman. Maybe my mental state is that I'm sound.
Yeah.
Who knows? You just don't
It's
know.
that line again, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Finding
yeah.
the line and where
Yeah.
that would be individually for you.
Don't want to cause a drama. Don't want to be a burden. Can't really be bothered with the hassle. So just muddle through it. But not that I'm muddling through anything. I'm okay.
You're okay.
I'm okay.
Just to be clear.
While we're all here,
I just want to say this. So that was the only thing I could think of before we sat down to do the podcast, was maybe it's a reframe that's required. Like, this actually takes courage. It leads to you being stronger. And I mean, as far as suicide goes, like, it's it's not the reason to not do it, but you're putting a massive amount of pain on a lot of people for a very long time as well.
forever.
Forever. There's certainly 5 people that's really going to screw up for a long time, and 20 people who it's going to hurt for a long time, at least for everyone. It must be the amount of contact we have with people. So, yeah, that was my thoughts on that, to reframe it. Jacob, could you pull up the link to the statistics between male and female suicide? Mm-hmm. Thank you. It was the second link. Well, it disrobed. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, in England, in 2014, 1 in 6 adults had a common... Sorry. In England, in 2014, 1 in 6 adults had a common mental health problem, about 1 in 5 women and 1 in 8 men. From 2000 to 2014, rates of common mental health problems in England steadily increased in women and remained largely stable in men. In 2018, there were 6,507 suicides registered in the UK, and in 2019, there were 5,691 registered in England and Wales. Of these, 3/4 were among men, which has been the case since the mid-1990s. 3 times as many men as women die by suicide. Men aged 40 to 49, fucking hell done, have the highest suicide rates in the UK.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle. Men report lower levels of life satisfaction than women, according to the government's National Wellbeing Survey. So one of the things that, when I was looking at the stats for this, because like, as you know, Paddy said, there's a stigma around it. I agree with you. I'm not sure there's an external...
No, I don't think stigma is the right word.
Well, but he said in another interview that I saw that I didn't put here, where he sat. It's like it's a press conference, and he sat next to Meatball Molly, and he said he thinks that his mates would think, if they asked for help, that other people would think they were soft. Other people, he said, they'd think you were a mushroom, which must be a young person's modern parlance for
mushroom.
You're looking at me, but I'm nearly 30.
Yeah,
I'm nearly 30. Oh, you're so decrepit.
You don't look it.
So decrepit.
Have you ever been called a mushroom, mate?
No.
No, I haven't either. I don't know whether that's a Paddy thing or like
taken
a mushroom.
I think it's a Paddy thing.
You think it's a Paddy thing?
I've heard him say it a lot.
Oh, you've heard it in the
I've never
podcast?
heard anybody else say it apart from Paddy.
So
Oh, okay,
Is it a good thing? Is it?
No, it's a bad thing.
I like mushrooms.
Mushroom and sausage.
Sausage. Oh,
I like
sausage is
mushrooms
common.
and sausages.
Oh, it's quite common.
Yeah, Scousers will call you a sausage, but I've never been called a mushroom before. And I was like,
It's special. It's like next level.
yeah, I'm like, is this a certain area of Liverpool where they call each other mushrooms or something?
This is territorial.
It's purely territorial. So it's
Yeah.
it's a pimbletism to call people a mushroom, a pimbletism. So he did say that. He did say that like he felt like some of his mates would be worried about it. I don't think so. There's a movie that I watched the other night against my will called Smile, and there's no spoilers in what I'm about to say. But in that movie, people in their 30s and 40s were regularly police, doctors, solicitors were referring to people who were mentally ill as head cases and crazies and loonies. And I was thinking, I don't think we've been doing that since the 80s. So it didn't ring true. Like you're watching the film and you're going, everybody's pretty mental health sensitive now.
Yeah, you have to be.
You know, when there's like a policeman arrives on the scene and goes, "What's this person done?" Well, they were obviously a fucking head case, and it's like the cop looked 42, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
was this written for the 70s or something? Like, no one talks like that. So I agree with you. I don't think there's a stigma externally, but I do think there's massive internal resistance from men. Did you have this in your relationship in the beginning for him to open up about stuff and?
Yeah, so it mainly came from me because obviously I understand trauma and relationships. So I knew that I needed to pioneer that healing work moving forward in a relationship. So it was uncomfortable for us both, but it definitely was me making sure that he felt safe and that I was, my actions were matching my words and all of that kind of thing to make him then come forward with stuff. But now he's quite open with talking, and anytime he feels worried or
feels a certain way.
Yeah.
I think it's a big thing in relationships, isn't it? Another scenario that was against my will. I just got dropped into it.
Is there anything that you want to tell us? You're doing a lot of stuff against your will.
No, honestly, it's terrible. Codependency, you just can't say. Do you want to see this horror film that's called Smile that features Kevin Bacon's daughter? I was like, ugh, not really. Yeah, fine, let's go. Have you seen it?
Against my will.
Awful.
I can help you with this.
My mates down in London, they were having an argument, and I was staying in their spare room at the time, and they got me out of bed to referee the argument. They're like, "You do psychology. What do you think?" I was like, "Oh, Christ almighty.
I think it's too early.
I think this is a boundary break is what I think. This is literally fucking sleep." But I noticed, I was like, well, I'm not a counsellor. I'm not trained for this. But then I was like, okay, what would a relationship counsellor say? And one of the things that was happening is they would say, I'm really angry with you because of this thing that you did. And I was like, I heard myself say it sounding like a proper head shrinker. I was like, and do you actually feel angry? Because I'm hearing. And actually I was saying something like, if you feel sad or hurt that your partner did this, but you're in like war mode and you're going, I'm fucking angry and I'm pissed off, your partner's going to respond differently than if you say, that makes me feel really sad. That makes me feel hurt. It's a different response you get, isn't it? Like to be able to just say what you're actually really feeling rather than jumping to war.
Yeah, I think a lot of relationships, if you're not aware of that other person's mental health properly, it becomes a bit of a one-on-one game, doesn't it, with arguments?
Yeah.
And it turns into who's hurt who the most.
Yeah.
I think a lot of relationships are like that, and it becomes like this war and this battle. And you never get anywhere, and you just go around in circles, and actually no one heals and everyone gets worse because there's more trauma.
Yeah, everyone gets more narked.
Yeah. And then there's more resentments as well, isn't there? Which is the one thing, like I don't know much about relationship counseling, but I remember that at just like a day-long course or something. There was once the resentments crept in, it's relationship rot, you know, because then like people stop being intimate physically, they stop having sex, they stop talking, apparently when they study it, people stop looking at each other as much. So they're just inside their own head, like churning away about their partner and how much they resent them, but they're not actually looking anymore at the person that's in front of them. So I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, talk to each other. If you do need help, then do ask for help. And if you're a man who needs help, it's not strong to just sit there and say nothing. The stronger, more courageous thing to do is to say, I need some help. There's counselling directories online, that whatever country or state you're in, you can just say, go to like put counselling directory or therapist directory for your country or state. And then usually they have search tags for this. You can say whether you want to be a man or a woman and what their speciality is or what particular therapeutic style they do or what your problem is specifically. And it's always better to speak to a specialist for whatever it is, which is true of strength training as well, isn't it?
Apparently so.
Could you go to the next link, please, Jacob?
Is it the one that starts in 15 seconds?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You don't need. No, don't bother starting it at 15 seconds. This is a TikTok video responding to a comment about male suicide. This is the link after the male-female statistics.
You know, most suicides are men. Yes, because you told each other that any emotion other than anger was weak and gay. So now you're bottling it up inside and killing yourself. So how does the consequences of your own actions taste?
Yeah, suicide hotline. You're at the end of your ropes? Well, let me see how I can help you. Oh, you're a man? Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, there's no help here. Becky on TikTok said that you need to take it up as a complaint with all the other men in your life. Thank you.
I don't think this is necessarily a commonly held view. I don't know whether it is or it isn't. I hope it isn't. The allegation that this is men doing this to men, do you think that is fair?
I mean, it's really triggering what she said and how she said it and how flippant it was.
It's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, as women, we can all have a biased opinion depending on our personal experiences with men. But
Sorry to interrupt. People are saying that when we play the videos, they can't hear it. I'm trying to work out how. But do you want to just tell them for now where to look at the videos? So they can go on?
Oh, yeah. Could you drop it in the comment section, Jacob?
I'll put the link for everyone in the comments.
Sorry about that, folks.
Sorry, we're working on it.
We'll figure it out. Can you fix that in post?
Yeah.
Ooh, I love
So
fixing.
talented, isn't he?
He is. I mean, he's
Isn't
not.
he?
He's not
He
just.
should do this for a living, I
He
think.
should. Not just a pretty
It's
face.
just
Yeah.
with the streaming stuff, it's routing it all through. So
Oh, okay.
What does that mean?
Well, it's routing.
It's routing through something.
Yeah, you've got to be careful when you're routing.
Well,
Sorry to interrupt anyway.
it's all right.
Go on,
But
Sarah.
no, I think generationally, men have done it to men because it's not been safe. So long, maybe, yes, but not directly, I think.
Men saying to other men that if they complain about their feelings, they're being weak and gay was specifically what she said.
And it's awful.
I don't. Yeah, maybe like the generation above. I would have thought that would be more of a social taboo to say that now.
Yeah,
Even amongst-
definitely now.
Yeah.
Definitely now. Even amongst doormen. Like if one door, if
I don't know. I don't know what they're like now.
I don't think if a lad turned up to work and was like, I'm depressed, and was like serious, that the lads around would be like, shut up,
No,
you're gay.
I don't know. I've not worked the doors for a very long time.
Was it even like that when we were doing it? Do you think
Yeah.
so? Was it a bit like
Yeah.
that? You'd be called weak and gay
Yeah,
for having a mental health
I'd
issue.
say so.
Yeah.
Not that I can remember anyone having
Well, you wouldn't
any
even
kind of complaint.
You wouldn't even bring it to the door.
Yeah.
Yeah,
would
can you imagine that? Can I just have a little word, fellas? Can you all gather round? No, I don't think that would have happened.
Oh, you're right. The world has changed a lot.
Very,
in 20
very
years.
much.
It has changed a lot. I do with the gender stereotypes. I think with that one, what I would say is what you can actively see. When you see the active reinforcement of a gender stereotype like that, which is men shouldn't say that they're in pain, the active reinforcement will come from men, and we can see it because they're saying things like that. I do think there's passive reinforcement from women. I've noticed in my family and in interpersonal relationships, we're all covertly and unconsciously rewarding and punishing each other for certain behaviors. And I think you wouldn't see it and you wouldn't hear it, but passively. It could be an emotional state shift. It might just be like, oh, I don't feel comfortable with this conversation anymore. But I do think there's been reinforcement from both sides there. So from male mental health, I want to talk to you both about depression. This is a very uplifting podcast today. Super uplifting.
Happy Friday.
Yeah,
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Should we all sing a
Friday.
song? Should we cheer things up a little tiny bit? Sing a song.
Happy Friday, everybody. The question of the day, the question du jour, do you think depression is real? Do you think it's real?
How do I word this?
You're about to do an Andrew Tate on this.
No.
Depression is not real. Buy a Bugatti.
Yeah. What colour's your Bugatti? I have a silver BMW. It's very old and fucked. Do I think depression is real? I think to an extent, yes. Emily, what do you think?
I think depression is
Are you bottling it?
possibly something similar to like we would classify fibromyalgia. Is that it's an umbrella term for many different things, symptoms, reasons, causes. I do believe that we feel depression, but the causes are so vast for the amount of different people, social situations, everyone's experiences. It's very hard to treat, I think, effectively. And I think that's why so many people struggle, is because it's an umbrella term of all these different things that it can be caused by.
Yeah. That's it's interesting. When I tried to answer the question for myself on the way over, I was like, similar thing. It's an umbrella term. I know from working with people with depression, clients with depression, who tell me how they feel and then tell me the cause of their feelings, and then we figure out a way for them out of it. They're definitely not all describing the same phenomenon. So phenomenon. So,
Phenomenon.
Phenomenon. So I was then like, well, what would I even be able to identify off the top of my head as I'm driving through the Liverpool tunnel? And I came up with at least 4. Sometimes people call grief depression. Just completely legitimate something. They've really lost something.
It's the exact same. It's the exact same symptoms. Apparently,
Yeah.
whether this is true or not, I like to believe it's true.
Did you read it online?
I read it in a book,
It's true as
an
true
old
could be.
school book, like an actual book.
A book.
It was real.
You read a book.
Yes,
Nice one, mate.
yes. My name is Danny Wilson. I read a book.
Well done.
Thank you. I feel
done,
safe.
well done.
And it was saying that up until a few years ago, if you went to the doctors describing symptoms of depression, but you'd recently lost someone, they weren't allowed to prescribe antidepressants
Right.
because there was no, what's the word I'm looking for?
Justification?
Maybe.
No need.
You're just throwing other words into my head now.
No need.
There was no you couldn't differentiate between grief and depression because
I see.
the symptoms are exactly the same. So the doctor couldn't confidently, not that I think they can anyway, but the doctor couldn't confidently say, you are suffering from depression, here is some medication, because the symptoms are exactly the same with grief. So if you've lost someone, if you've even if you've just been through a real bad breakup, I think that's exactly the same as grief.
Yes.
The doctor wasn't allowed to go, oh, here you go. I think they are now. But the doctor wasn't allowed to go, oh, here you go.
Allowed, actively encouraged.
Actively encouraged, yes. Paid.
What were you going to say?
Yeah, I think there's it's just talking about grief really. Like I think the timeline of healing from that is different again for each person. So where would that cutoff point be from this is your grieving period and then this is now classed as a depressive mental state?
Right.
I think like it's an open timeline, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm getting from both of you then is when it comes to grief, there could be legitimate grief for an external reason, but then if it goes on beyond a normal grieving cycle, then we might say this is neurotic, it's a mental health issue. But grieving isn't a mental health issue, right?
No,
shouldn't be.
No, but that's what that's the interesting thing. It's not a mental health issue. It's nothing to do with your brain chemistry, but it's the.
Are we leaking?
Jacob, we're leaking, mate.
Does it matter?
It doesn't matter much. It just sounds like somebody's having a tinkle behind me.
And they're not. I can see that they're not.
Tell you what, this podcast's going well, Jacob.
Carry on.
How exciting.
Do we sing a song now?
I'd like to.
I think we probably should.
We should. So there's I don't want to drift off too far into it. That was the first one I came up with, was like grief. I do think we live in a grief-phobic culture, like a sadness phobic. You shouldn't feel sad. It's not allowed to feel sad. The second one I came up with was a CPTSD response. Have you heard of, so there's fight, flight, fawn, and freeze. Have you heard of these four responses? Yeah. So I had a cluster of clients who said they had depression, and it manifested, but what they were describing when we got into, because I like to get specific, I assume sorry to say this, doesn't sound very nice. I assume the client doesn't know what the problem is. Because why would they? The brain isn't evolved to map internal problems. No. It's evolved to map language and terrain. The chance of any of us really knowing what's wrong with us at any moment in time is extremely low. Extremely low. So I just would get into like their personal experiences. That's really loud.
It's really loud.
It makes it more dramatic.
It's like
it sounds like somebody's permanently pissing behind me. Oh dear me.
My anxiety's through the roof. Right?
I'm sure it is. Your control issues being kicked off. Listen, this is a safe space for men to mention their mental health issues, so you can tell us we are psychologically literate. What do you want to do, Jacob?
Don't come over here if you need a piss. Because you're gonna really need one soon.
Go on.
Okay, we'll carry on for about 15 and then
Carry on.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's wing it.
Is that rain that's doing that, or is
I don't know.
somebody just flooded the bathroom
Look
upstairs?
at him. Doesn't know. Doesn't care.
Does this stuff happen for other people's podcasts, or am I?
We're special. We're the chosen ones.
We are the chosen ones.
I've had a leak before, but I didn't realise until I got in the next morning and the whole place was flooded.
It seems to be. It seems to be slowing down now.
Ever the optimist.
It's
Literally no indication of it slowing down at all.
There is. Listen.
It's not, man.
I think that's very British of him. I think we should be fine.
That's slow. It is.
It is
That's
clearly.
slowing down. That's slowing down. That's slowing down. Look at the drips at the top. That's slowing down.
Yeah.
Anyway, today's podcast is sponsored by Plymouth Plumbing.
You just had the most moderate validation for your lived experience ever. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it is.
The drips are slowing down here, aren't they?
I've got finely tuned ears, and I'm telling you that the
Rain Man over here. Rain Man's counting the fucking rain of droplets.
A viewer says this has been very confusing.
Well, yeah. If you didn't have mental health issues coming in, you do now. We're not helping. We're giving them out like fucking smarties.
Oh, I forgot we could see what people.
You can see
saying.
the comments over there.
Oh God.
Do you want to see my favourite comment? One sec.
Go on, give us your favourite comment. Bye. Lost interest.
Why would you even bother typing that?
Johan, you can just leave, you know. You don't have to be hurtful and then go. You could just go. There's no punishment for that.
Lost interest.
Oh, tell you what.
Sorry, Johan.
Sorry about that, my mate. Hope the rest of your Friday goes well. I'll Jacob. So what I noticed with this cluster of people who said that they were depressed when we got into what they were actually experiencing.
You can't talk about depression when you're laughing your balls off.
This is not right. This is upside down. Oh dear. And it was all rooted in childhood trauma. Now, what they were saying was, they could the depression was actually like, it was physical. You mentioned fibromyalgia before.
Yeah.
So they would actually talk about heavy limbs. There was a weight on their chest and they couldn't get out of bed. But not everybody who told me they were depressed said that they couldn't get out of bed or had heavy limbs. This is just my little hypothesis, and I do, bearing in mind, like, there's an affirmation bias here because I talk about CPTSD a lot, and I think because of that, I attract clients who have CPTSD.
Naturally, yeah.
So when I inquired, all of these people who had the heavy limb depression had reported in the affirmative that they had a parent who screamed at them when they were a kid, not necessarily physically hit them, but screamed at them. So I started thinking, is this like an intense freeze response to the emotional pressure, to the adrenal response of being screamed at? Because when you're a child, you can't fight back, you can't run away, you can't negotiate, you just stand there and take it. Yeah. But sort of freeze up. And I wondered if that could be a thing. Could be nonsense, it could be affirmation, but if there's something in it, that means when we say depression, as you said, an umbrella term, these are 4 I came up with off the top. There could be multiple causes, multiple depressions, and then multiple solutions.
Scouser stole the lead.
We've had a donation.
Hey? We've had the donation of £2.
Scouser stole the lead.
That'll fix the leak.
From the roof.
I tell you, this kind of racism, that's sort of some sort of ethnocentrism, that is terrible.
I love that.
Yeah.
Here's £2, lad.
Here's £2. You're thieving Scousers. Yeah, and then there was like physiological that I thought of, like, if you're, this annoyed me. I was watching a Stephen Fry documentary on being bipolar, and he got to the point where he was interviewing Carrie Fisher. Rest in peace to Carrie Fisher. And they were talking about the fact they both had bipolar. And then they got into this conversation about how at the weekends they're like getting smashed on alcohol and snorting cocaine. And then on Monday, and they were really high. And on Monday and Tuesday, they were really low. And I was screaming at the TV going like, that's not a mental health issue. You're on a come down.
It's a lifestyle issue.
That's a lifestyle issue. Yeah. It's not. I'm not saying that either of them did or didn't have it, but at that particular point in the documentary, they were talking about bipolar. The bipolar made them drink and snort coke, and then made them feel bad afterwards. And I'm like, I don't think that's correlation. That's a correlation causation fallacy.
Do you think that's just them trying to validate the behaviour by saying, listen, that's not me, I don't want to do this?
Well, if
it's the bipolar that's telling me to do it. What did you just say?
If you're rich and famous enough, you can not only afford the cocaine, you can afford the bullshit to alleviate the responsibility of having hoofed it all up your schnozzer as well.
Schnoodle.
So there's physiological, like there's actual physiological reasons. And then the other one I came up with was cultural. So I think there's actual legitimate reasons in this culture for people to feel very sad, very frozen, very immobilized, which is often what people say with depression, right? And even a sense of grief. But that could be because our culture's fucked up. It's weird. We do weird stuff.
Yes,
we have weird lifestyles, weird work patterns, weird familial relationships.
Life is completely different now. Like completely different now.
Yeah.
To it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
30 years, 40 years, 50 years ago. There's no comparisons whatsoever to what life was like then and it is now.
Yes.
It's completely different.
Right.
So you would expect, it's an effort. I'm trying to not say kinda after everything. So call me up if you hear me say kinda.
I will do, yeah.
Kinda. It's, you would expect there to be a completely different lifestyle set up now than there was then, because life is totally different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you agree with
that? I agree. And then I sort of go further back in time and I think, well, what we talk about grief, say you keep it at the cultural level and lifestyles, what have we lost? Well, we lost community in exchange for TV and social media. We lost God and religion and spirituality in exchange for science and psychology and medicine and drugs. just those two things is pretty important to human beings.
Communication.
Community
as well.
is huge.
Yeah.
We evolved all living in the same place. You would get married, you would have kids. Those kids would grow up, they would get married, they would build a house next to your house.
Yeah.
And they're your auntie and uncle and your mum and dad. Everyone would live in exactly the same place.
Yeah.
Now it's the exact opposite.
Right.
Like people just don't even see each other anymore. I see my mum probably twice a year.
Yes, that's
it's so
Nesting,
completely
isn't
different.
it? The nesting is different.
Totally
isn't it?
different now. So we haven't got that sense of community. We haven't got that connection with people.
Yeah.
I don't know the names of my neighbours that live next door but one.
I think when they write about this stuff, they call it atomization. So everybody seeks to become an atom in their own individualized, hyper-individualized reality. What were you going to say about communication before?
The communication is lost as well, isn't it? Like in the cultural sense, when we talk about generations,
Yeah.
most young people don't communicate the same as what most people my age, especially as well,
Yeah.
and younger. I think there's a barrier with communication there. I think people are not talking the same. People are not willing to hello at people.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, there's not as much face-to-face interaction anymore,
No.
is there? Everything is over. I think. Well, the only face-to-face that a lot of people get is FaceTime, and that is still a screen. It's not
false.
real. It's not a real connection, right?
no.
That I wonder is related a lot to stimulation. Like we didn't have the choice to not speak to each other. So we mentioned music and the Crazy House and Quiggins before we came on. So with that group of people that I was hanging around with them when I was like 17, 18, we used to go to each other's houses and then you'd put on like, it's typically vinyl, not CD, on a record player. And we'd be listening to Pantera, we'd be listening, and you'd have to listen to the whole album. And then you'd sit there and read the album cover.
Yeah.
And then you just look at each other's dumb faces and say words because we weren't distracted with phones.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything else, just each other in a room and the music that's playing. And then you're having a drink and that's it. And I didn't, obviously when you're living through history, you don't think, oh, this is a special moment that I'll never see again for the rest of my life. You just, well, this is just normal life. Going further back, if there wasn't even like vinyl, there wasn't music players, people would entertain themselves by learning music. They would play music. That's my father did that. My father plays music because his father was a music teacher, and that's how they would entertain each other, either in the family house or in pubs. So they would learn to sing. They would learn. That's mad. That's like, so my father and my grandfather are from a generation that's almost like, even though it's only 70, 80 years ago, it ends up culturally, the difference being more like 300 years ago because of the nature of acceleration of tech. It's really, to me, that's weird.
Oh, yeah. Well, nothing changed for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And then in the last 50 years, it's just gone, technology, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just completely changed.
Yeah.
When you think about it, like you're saying then that people used to go to pubs and all sing and all that kind of stuff. That was happening for hundreds of years.
Yes.
And then the invention of the smartphone, the invention of technology, all that all that dissipated, all that went.
Is this something that you've heard yourself back in podcasts saying kinda, and it's become like a real sore spot
I
now?
did a podcast not long ago.
Yeah.
And I had a pen and paper and I did a little tick every time I did kinda. And I ran out of paper.
Did you stab yourself with bad?
Is everything okay?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I was saying kinda too much.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we all have tics. When I started doing videos, I would say in the most Scouse way possible, but I don't speak Scouse normally. And then I would speak with a normal voice, and then when I wanted to say
a normal voice, it's a bit like a normal person.
Sorry, Scouse is normal, and I do have a Scouse
We are in
accent.
Liverpool.
We are in Liverpool.
We're going to get killed.
Will we leave Liverpool? No, they'll close the tunnel just for me. So that was when I was thinking about depression, like you say, as an umbrella term for things. It does seem to cover quite a lot. Have you been depressed?
Yes. I think I've experienced depression. Yeah, I think I have. I read it slightly different.
Yeah.
Probably because I'm more aware of the psychology, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't see it as I was depressed at this point in time. I see it as I was experiencing some horrible trauma that I had to heal from and then move forward. So I've experienced it twice in my life. One through my narcissistically abusive relationship.
Yeah.
And then later in my teenage years, probably when I was around 18, 19.
Yeah.
And I was in uni. I just didn't want to do my second year. I don't remember what caused it. I just felt like shit.
Yeah. What were you studying?
I was doing a degree in fine art.
Okay.
I wanted to be a tattoo artist at the time. That's what I thought I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I just got very overwhelmed very quickly with the amount of workload. And I think it just felt like too much.
Yeah.
So maybe there's like a bit of pressure there that I couldn't deal with.
Yes.
Maybe at the time.
Yes.
And I went to the doctors and they were like, citalopram.
Yeah.
And I took that, felt like a zombie. And I was like, this is awful.
Yeah.
Never wanted to go on medication ever again.
Yeah. So you were on antidepressants for how long were you on for?
I probably did that for about 6 months because I was like, well, the doctors must know what will make me feel better because
Yeah,
I was
they
like
do.
18.
Yeah.
Didn't really know anything.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just made me feel numb, I think, from the inside out. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I actually felt more paranoid while I was on those as well, feeling like cars were following me or I was seeing the same thing on a loop.
Did they warn you that it can cause psychotic
No.
thinking? They didn't warn
Nothing.
you. Yeah,
Nothing.
it's actually a common side effect.
Yeah. So I just decided that I was like, well, how I felt before was not as bad as this.
So it helped.
So I'm gonna.
So in a weird way, it helped.
Yeah.
You think you feel like shit now? Take some of these.
These.
When you came off, did you do it via doctor's orders and did you follow a tapering protocol?
No.
Or you took yourself off?
No, I just took myself off. One day I remember lying in bed and being like, right, I've got 3 months until I need my second year of uni work in.
Yeah.
I've done nothing. I don't want these tablets anymore.
Yeah.
I just thought, no, I'm not going to do it. And I just dropped them,
Yeah.
portaled into my laptop and finished all of my work.
Yes.
I was
Okay.
like, right, this is the time where I need to pick myself up. I think I found that line that I was like, right.
And did it go okay dropping the antidepressants?
I don't remember anything being horrific.
Okay. I should just say at this point, none of us are medical professionals. Do not take advice from YouTube videos.
Yes.
That is stupid. See a doctor. And as far as coming off antidepressants goes, if you are thinking of doing it, then you have to follow a tapering protocol.
I
You
would
have to speak to
advise
a
that
medical
now.
professional.
Yeah, I would advise that now. Yeah.
I having given that disclaimer, I'm generally for most mental health issues, I'm against it for medication. Depression, particularly, because I've had people in my family be given different antidepressants, and it's created suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
Like we've had just 2 years ago, somebody try and kill themselves within 2 weeks of going on something that I don't think had even passed in America FDA approval yet, but we were using it here and in Norway. And everybody in the medical community knew it was not extremely, but that there were a high rate of instances of problems caused by it. These things, if you read the packet, says can cause depression. The antidepressant can cause depression, and it can cause psychotic thinking, and it can create all kinds of issues. Have you ever been depressed? Would you say, Danny?
No.
Never.
No.
I've
been very, 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 very unhappy, but I don't think I've ever been depressed.
When you have mental health issues, do you get like, do you know whether you veer more towards like an anxiety? Would you have more anxiety than depression, or do you not really?
I don't have anxiety. Probably more catastrophizing.
Catastrophizing is the big one.
Yeah, massive. Yeah, worst case scenario.
Okay. Jacob, if you could please pull up the serotonin and depression paper. This was published in the Journal of Molecular Psychiatry, which is my favorite journal, that one.
Yes, I have many.
I mean, a weekend won't go by where I
No.
don't pick it up at least a few times.
No, it's good toilet reading.
So this is from the abstract, just very, very briefly. The serotonin hypothesis of depression is still influential. We aimed to synthesize and evaluate evidence on whether depression is associated with lowered serotonin concentration or activity in a systemic umbrella review of the principal relevant areas of research. So this paper that's been published has created an unusually high amount of controversy. And basically what it's rooted in is there is a model of depression that says depression is caused by lowered levels of serotonin. So that the solution to depression will be to elevate those levels of serotonin. SSRI as a form of antidepressant is a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, which sounds complicated, but what it means is serotonin reuptake means that serotonin is taken back into the system and is kind of absorbed as waste, if you like, and it inhibits that, which means the serotonin as a neurotransmitter is available for longer to the brain. The theory being that that will make you feel more gooder and therefore you won't be depressed. But it's never been shown conclusively that people experience depression because they have lowered serotonin levels. They may have depression and then have lowered serotonin levels. Even that we're not really sure of. But this paper showed pretty conclusively that the idea that depression is caused by a chemical imbalance doesn't have empirical published research to back it as such. And as I say, it's generated a certain amount of controversy. If you look up on YouTube, you'll see some really, really very emotional responses to this paper because it's being interpreted as a call for people to put their antidepressants down and to stop taking them. That is not mentioned once in this paper. Nobody is suggesting that anybody do that. It's a grouping of an analysis of meta-analyses, and it is an umbrella review. Just to get this absolutely right and correct, Jacob, if you could pull up the definition of a meta-analysis, please. This will be relevant for you guys when you read in your strength and nutrition-based papers. If you just zoom in a little bit on that. A meta-analysis is a statistical analysis that combines the results of multiple scientific studies. Meta-analyses can be performed when there are multiple scientific studies addressing the same question, with each individual study reporting measurements that are expected to have some degree of error. And if you could pull out, Jacob, and then give us a definition of an umbrella review. So this study is not a meta-analysis. It's an umbrella review that includes meta-analyses, and I think there's 16 meta-analyses that it reviews, one research paper that it reviews, but it effectively is reviewing a correlation of over 131 papers. It's good data. It's plenty of data. So it's not a meta-analysis. It's an analysis of meta-analyses. And it's called an umbrella review. It's a review of reviews. It compiles all the evidence from existing reviews on a topic to give a high-level overview. An umbrella review is commonly conducted when there are multiple competing interventions for a condition. An overview of reviews about each of these interventions can be useful in determining how to best translate the evidence into practice. If you could go back to the paper, please, Jacob.
The serotonin one.
The serotonin one, please, yeah. And then if you could scroll down to the discussion part, and just the first part of the discussion part. The reason why I'm giving you these definitions of meta-analyses and umbrella reviews, even if you're not an academic, don't be scared of published research. Don't be scared of reading published research. You can always just skip. You can read the abstract, and then you can go through, just there, that's perfect. And then you can go through to the results. It'll either be called, not the results. It'll either be called the conclusion. You can go through to the conclusion or the discussion. It is supposed to be written in a way that non-scientists can read it and understand it. If they fail to do that, it's rejected for being published. So it might pass peer review, but it won't be published if you can't write your discussion and your conclusion in a way that is clear to a lay person or a non-scientist. So what this actually came to the conclusion of, if you could zoom in a little bit, I didn't bring my glasses today. Our comprehensive review of the major strands of research on serotonin shows there is no convincing evidence that depression is associated with or caused by lower serotonin concentrations or activity. Most studies found no evidence of reduced serotonin activity in people with depression compared to people without, and methods to reduce serotonin availability using tryptophan depletion do not consistently lower mood in volunteers. So even if you try to reduce serotonin to see if that affects mood and creates depression, it doesn't. High quality, well-powered genetic studies effectively exclude an association between genotypes related to the serotonin system and depression, including a proposed interaction with stress. The effects of tryptophan depletion, if we go to the bottom of that paragraph, in some crossover studies involving people with depression may also be mediated by antidepressants, although these are not consistently found. From the bottom of the next paragraph, the idea that depression is the result of a chemical imbalance also influences decisions about whether to take or continue antidepressant medication and may discourage people from discontinuing treatment, potentially leading to lifelong dependence on these drugs. Thank you, Jacob. So if you could go back to us, please. Within that paper, it's easy to find online. You can read it. It also says that long-term antidepressant usage can actually permanently damage your ability to produce serotonin. So I'm not a neurobiologist, I'm not an endocrinologist, but I know enough to know that this is a fairly young field of study. So when you're talking about the effect of neurotransmitters and hormones on the body, we really don't know exactly how that works. But you get these simplistic, reductive explanations that are even repeated in scientific literature, like serotonin good, have serotonin, feel good, no serotonin, feel bad. There's no evidence for that. The other one that everybody's familiar with is oxytocin. They go, oxytocin, it's the love drug. You get that when you hug each other. A mother experiences a surge of oxytocin when she holds her baby. Yes, true. But did you know that when a junkie goes into heroin withdrawal, they also surge with oxytocin, and they experience that oxytocin is definitely correlated with the experience of suffering and pain of heroin withdrawal. Similarly, for people who are suffering intense levels of heartbreak and grief, oxytocin is an absolutely essential part of the chemical cocktail that the body is producing to create suffering, to create unpleasant feelings of grief and anxiety and depression. So reducing these complicated relationships between neurotransmitters and hormones to simplistic sort of equivalences like serotonin equals happy, no serotonin equals unhappy. So if you're unhappy, you have no serotonin, is brutally simplistic. The big one from when I used to teach self-defense was we would talk about the adrenaline rush, and everybody would say, oh, this is the effect. The adrenaline will make you want to run away, or it will make you want to fight. You know, endocrinologists would not, somebody with a PhD in neurobiology wouldn't be happy with that as an explanation, because if you're attacked in a street fight, it's not just adrenaline you experience. It's quite hard for us to isolate exactly what each of these things do. And I think even trying to say this neurotransmitter equals that effect is probably going to be found to be redundant in the future. So what do we think about this? It's been shown that the idea, did you ever think that it was likely that depression was caused by a chemical imbalance anyway? Did you ever buy that explanation?
I don't know if we're talking ever, probably years ago, I would have believed. When you're a bit younger, you believe everything, don't you? Mm. So I wouldn't have had any. You kind of mentioned it before when you were talking about a doctor's told me, so it must be right.
Yeah.
So when you just I said kind of, you just get onto it. A doctor says take this, and you go, okay, yeah. this must be good for me. So back then, I probably would have gone, yes, doctor.
Yeah.
Now I'm a little bit more critical. Then it's completely different.
Yeah.
I feel like I probably figured that out on my own with not feeling good on medication.
Yeah.
So then I was like, well, it's clearly not working, so it can't be caused by this. So it must be something else.
Yes.
So I think I figured that out.
Yeah. One of the things that you said, that everybody who I know personally who's had an experience with antidepressants says the same thing. They felt an effect, but they felt numb. Mm. They felt dissociated from reality. You said you weren't working as hard and you weren't keeping up with work as much. You didn't care.
Yeah.
There's a guy that we both, I won't name him, that we both used to do the door with from Toxteth. And he said exactly the same thing. He said antidepressants definitely took the pain away, but then I wasn't paying my bills. I wasn't paying rent. I wasn't paying council tax. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel anything for anyone at any time.
It took the joy away as well.
Yeah, everything goes. Yeah. Everything goes. I'm not a doctor. It's not medical advice. You should never take medical advice from Facebook posts or YouTube posts. You've got to speak to medical professionals, but that doesn't mean you just blindly submit to what they say. You've always got a right to a second opinion. You've always got a right to speak to somebody else. I mean, it can cost to do that, but you absolutely should do it. This whole narrative and mythology that's built up about following the science, we have to remember that following the science and just obeying science is not scientific. Science is not a dogmatic orthodoxy. Science was born out of a desire to challenge the dogmatic orthodoxy of religion. You measure, you weigh, you debate, you gather more and more data. You can challenge anything in science. Anything anybody has asserted in science, in order for it to be science, you have to be able to challenge it. But you must follow the scientific protocol. That's all. Nothing is written in stone. So even within this article, which has produced a bunch of YouTube videos that, as I said before, are really emotional, and a bunch of papers and a bunch of mainstream media articles about it, be rational, be reasonable. The paper is only saying one thing and one thing only. It's not saying throw your antidepressants in the toilet, or it's not even saying antidepressants don't work, because there is published peer-reviewed research out there that says it can be shown to work. And this paper doesn't deny that. It just says, on the basis of the analysis that they did, there was conclusively no evidence shown, no realistic, proper, decent evidence that shows that there's a correlation between serotonin and depression. There is no causal relationship between the two things. And that's it. That's really all that it says. Asked you both before if you believe that depression is real. Mm-hmm. You both think it is real, but you don't think you've experienced it. You definitely don't think you've experienced it.
I was trying to word it. I think feeling depressed is real, but depression as a long-term condition, that's where I'm in and out.
Yeah, I think I feel like, as I said before, depression is an umbrella term for all of these different causes, symptoms, reasons. You know, we feel it, like fibromyalgia. There's an issue there, but where it's come from is totally different to every single person, and how it should be treated should be different for every single person.
Well, when I asked myself this, I was like, how do you determine if something is real as a clinical entity? And I was like, well, it would probably need to be separate from normal experience and fairly consistent in the way it shows up. So I would say yes, then it probably is real. I've experienced depression. It's definitely your body and your mind is in an alternate state. You go into an alternative state. You think differently, you feel differently. It has different levels of intensity. It can even show up as, it can be painful, it can be somatically painful, even though you know there's no injury in your body. You know, it still hurts. It hurts to be alive. It's like weaponized sadness. There's sadness, there's low mood, and then there's just this intense black fog that envelops you, and you can't see beyond it. Your mind is just full of doom, and that doomful feeling goes through the body as well. And I was like, well, that would mean that it's quote unquote real as a clinical entity. But there's no other conclusions I would draw from that. That doesn't mean then if somebody shows up and says, I'm depressed, that I should assume that we must submit, that I as the therapist or as the coach and the client, we should just both stand before this thing and go, okay, well, I guess that's it then. I guess you are depressed or you have depression. We should start exploring every single possible avenue of attack and counterattack to neutralize the threat, whatever it is. Like I said before, like going through, like I would always start with that. The symptoms I gave you before is based on the checklist I used to do, which I would be like, well, are you sad for a reason? Like, have you considered that like life is pretty tragic and we lose people, we lose relationships, and that can create grief and so on and so then right the way through the physiological and the cultural, because I've never experienced it, but based on what I've read from decent sources, I'm sure you guys have heard this before. Some people actually have allergic responses even to food or certain drugs that show up as depression for them. Like some people don't tolerate carbohydrates very well, and they claim, and I don't see no reason to disbelieve them, that consistently, if there's a certain type of carbohydrate that they consume, they get physically depressed from that. And I'm like, well, maybe. I mean, we know serotonin is mainly produced in the gut. Does that mean something happens inside of the gut? You know, that I don't know. Like nobody really knows at this point. So you both think it's real. But as you said, probably an umbrella term for a bunch of different things.
Yeah, and causes. And
causes, and therefore treatments. The treatments would need to be different. To do you think that gym training has a big part? Could that be a big part of the solution to this type of thing, or is that too simplistic?
I think it could be a huge part.
Yeah, I think so.
Huge.
The gym is self-development in physical form, but it also shows you that you can push yourself where you thought you could never go, achieve things you never thought you could achieve. It then starts to move into other areas of your life. When you start to believe in yourself in one area, that cascades into another fold of areas, doesn't it? Naturally.
Yeah, it's given you a mission, isn't it? It's given you a purpose.
Yeah.
That's what, in my opinion, guys that I've coached, they come to me and they're just in limbo. They don't have anything to strive towards. They go to work, they hate their job, and all they can think about is the weekend. So they have nothing, they have no purpose, they have no mission in their life other than to get through the week and get to the pub. So when you can pull that right back and give someone a purpose, give someone a mission, give someone a task to do, massively amplifies feelings of worth, feelings of usefulness, feelings of want. It's huge.
I agree with everything you both said. There's another element of it that I think about sometimes, at least I know it's true for me. It feels like a flusher. Like you're literally flushing your system with highly oxygenated blood. You're probably changing the serotonin and endorphin levels, as we said before, whatever that chemical cocktail is. Even if you don't, whether you feel good or you feel bad or whatever when you're in the gym, you are creating massive physiological change. You're moving your body in weird ways that you don't habitually do. I'm very suspicious about depression and I don't want to make any big claim just yet. And habits, like if you're too stuck in a rut, too stuck in a habit cycle, what's that doing to you, like neurologically? These neural pathways that we're laying, we do the same thing all the time, experience the same emotions at the same time of day, the same thoughts, the same. Then you go to the gym and you do this thing. You're on a mission, you have progress, you're acting with consistency, it's self-development, you're experiencing this change and your self-confidence is increasing, you're hitting these goals, but physically you're also moving your body in weird and unusual ways,
Absolutely.
which I'm sure must have an impact on your
100% agree.
psychology.
We have, I think it's about 60 or 70,000 different thoughts every single day. 95% of those are the exact same thoughts that we had yesterday. So if we can put some form of pattern interrupt, some form of different thought, it's going to create a different feeling, a different emotion. Right. And then a different emotion is going to create a different action. You're going to get different results.
Interesting. What do you think?
I have a lot of clients that always say after their sessions that they feel lighter.
Right.
And whether that's because I talk holistically to a lot of them as well, but I say to everyone, you never feel bad after a session and you always feel better because it's as if it just, all you can do is think about the training at that point in time. You've got a set number, set amount of reps, set amount of sets. I have to think about my form. I have to think about my technique.
Distraction.
I have to be present in my body.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because
It's a form
it's
of
dangerous
meditation.
as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
if
risky.
you're not, yeah. So it just forces you into being present and to concentrate on something else for a little bit.
Distraction's massive. Distraction and disassociation are massive when it comes to changing your thought process.
And
if
it's
you
a
could distract
positive-
yourself from the feelings and disassociate yourself from the emotion, you're going to fly. Not like that. Not like really flying, because we're not that good. But
But it's a positive
yeah.
affirmation
Yeah,
for
yeah.
something. You're looking after yourself, aren't you?
So that side of it, like jokingly, proper gym rats will usually make jokes something along the lines of, at some point, like gym is their church, and it's like the therapy, steel therapy, the religion of steel. I went to a gym in Orlando, and I think that was called the Church of Steel or something like that, or Iron Religion. Iron Religion, I think it's called. And I was like, oh yeah, haha, it's very ironic and everything, but also not. Like, there is a religious element to it. There is a meditative, almost psychedelic element to it. I am not in my normal state of consciousness in the gym. Maybe when I'm warming up, I am. But then once I'm warmed up, I'm not normal. I'm not in my normal state, especially if you put music on and everything else. You're in a heightened state of arousal, physically and psychologically, because as you guys just said, like it's risky. There's danger elements. You must be present. You have to think about your form. You are changing your physiological state, and you're working towards an end goal. And it's pretty hard under those circumstances to be sort of like in negative. I mean, you probably can. I've never tried it. Like, if you really wanted to, can you stay in like just really sad, like a really negative state when you're smashing through the sets in the gym? I don't know. Maybe you can. You shouldn't.
I've had it when I've been going through bad times, when I've done a set and the only thing that I'm thinking about is the set. As soon as I put the weights down, I go back into myself a little tiny bit.
Right.
So it's almost like a cyclical.
Yeah.
I feel good for a minute.
Yeah.
Not feel good. Feel good for a minute. But yeah, it's 100% the way forward.
A lot of older religions and older cultures and older spiritual systems, they would regularly alter their consciousness. They might use fasting, chanting, drumming, dancing. What's the thing where you all sit together in a hot room, whatever that's called?
No idea.
Danny's never done it.
We've never done that, have we?
What do you call that? Anyway, whatever that is, taking psychedelics, even painful rites of initiation, all of this kind of thing, to me, it seems like a natural part of the human evolution and the human life cycle. So it makes sense to me. However, what do you say to the people who are like, oh, if they see somebody who's depressed, they go, oh, just put your trainers on and go for a run? That's also not what we're saying, right?
No.
I run a lot, and running's not good for your mental health. It isn't.
Why?
Because you're on your own with your thoughts.
Oh, just don't.
So you can. I've had it before. I've gone out for a run with a little bit of a niggle in my mind, and I've come back swinging. Swinging.
Just kick the front door open.
Absolutely fuming.
Right, and another thing that I didn't say before I went from this run.
No, before. Yeah. So I've had it a few times when I've gone out and gone, I'll just come clear my head.
Yeah.
And I'll be running along going, and another thing.
The way she called me Daniel instead of Danny.
Thing. Yeah. I've had it loads of times. So I think running, for me personally, we've said loads of times in this that everyone's different, but for me personally, running's not therapeutic.
Right.
It's not.
Gives
if
you
you're
too much time.
If I do a long run, if I'm out for 2 hours or 3 hours, there's a lot of stuff going through my mind. I said before about catastrophizing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's God punishing you for a foolish physical activity.
It is, yeah.
Doesn't want you running.
I apologise.
It's wrong to
I
run.
apologise, my lord.
We don't train to run. We train to stand and fight, like ancient warriors.
Yeah. When the zombies come,
that's my excuse for being
they'll
fat.
get you.
Why can't you run? Just give me a battle axe and I'll stand right fucking here.
Yeah.
Bring the enemy to me. I want to finish this burger. Where was it going to go next? Hang on.
Who knows?
I'm not checking my Instagram here, folks. This is where I have my notes, my show notes.
How very modern.
I know, isn't it terrible?
How very modern.
Oh, Andrew Tate says depression isn't real. Professor, Doctor, Lord and Master
of the world,
Andrew Tatingtons has said depression isn't real. Could you pull up the first clip of Andrew Tate saying depression isn't real, please, Jacob?
Sure. He's not no copyright claimers, is he?
I hope not.
Yeah,
no, he's a top G, master psychologist.
Right, I think.
Oh, this is him on Piers.
I don't think we're going to get. Let me.
Piers didn't come across well on this.
Piers didn't do a good job, no.
Not at all.
What do you believe about depression? Do you believe depression is a real thing?
I believe that feeling depressed is real. I don't believe depression as a clinical disease is real, no.
Really?
Correct.
You don't believe people can be clinically depressed?
I think PTSD is very real. Unfortunately, I have some friends who suffer from that. I know that feeling depressed is real. I believe that the number one power you have against these things are trying to take control of your own mind and affecting your own life. I believe that it's not healthy to hand over all your power and believe that depression is an outside disease that you can't affect. I know that when I've had difficult periods in my life, and also many of my friends, like I've said, suffer from PTSD and been through terrible things. I've lived a very difficult life, and I know people who have, that the things that made them feel better is when they woke up and said, you know what, I'm not going to allow this to damage me anymore. I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to get up and I'm going to fight this as hard as I can.
Right, and by the way, on that, I agree.
So we agree.
Right? My favorite speech is the Rocky Balboa one.
Okay, so then we agree.
I've been asked about this. I think the first time he claimed this was in 2016. And I've been asked about this a number of times over the years. I think we discussed it on another podcast where people were trying to bait me into saying something mean about Andrew Tate. If you could switch the screen back to it, thanks, Jacob.
There we are.
That's lovely. Gorgeous.
Oh, hello.
Hello, lovely. And what I said to people is, well, it's not actually universally agreed upon within the field of psychology and psychiatry that it is an actual clinical entity. Not universally. There are people far more qualified than I am who do question its existence as such, much along the lines that we just did. And they've been doing that for a long time. They've been doing it for decades. That it's like it's a cultural problem that we have right now with people just being sad. We're just not comfortable with it, with sadness, or there's an evolutionary misalignment with the way in which we live our lives, so on and so forth. So it is a fringe idea. It is a fringe idea, but he's not a million miles off the mark by claiming it. Do you think there's any value with something like this to just saying it's not real and I'm going to act as though it's not real? Do you think that's useful at all?
I think that's very, very person dependent.
Right.
I think it depends on how strong mentally the person is that you are telling this.
Right.
I think if you said it to the right person, I've said it to people in the right circumstance, and I've also got clients that I would absolutely never say it to. So
you've said to some clients, depression's not real. Don't worry about it.
Not in so many words, but when you just mentioned then saying, act if it's not real. Mm-hmm. I've had that conversation 100 times. How would life be different if you were thinking differently? What does life look like if you didn't have those thoughts?
Right.
Well, it would be this, and this. So why don't we try just not having those thoughts for a while?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why don't we try focusing on other areas of your life instead of putting all your attention and all your focus and all your energy into feeling how you don't want to feel? Let's flip that around and let's focus on how we do want to feel. What can we do to get you from feeling like a 2 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10 really, really quickly?
Yes.
Well, I could, I'm a big fan of cold showers. I'm sure people have seen me talk about them before. I could have a cold shower. Do you think that's going to change the way that you think? Absolutely. Right. Let's try that then.
Is it the pain of the cold shower that you like?
It's all of it.
Do you ever just twist your nipples really hard?
Yeah, slap myself in the face.
And say, Danny's a naughty boy.
I quite often stub my toe as I'm getting into the shower.
Deliberately. Smacks himself
Deliberately.
in the toe. Emily, do you think there's any benefit in adopting that kind of mindset where you go, no, this isn't real, and I'm not, sort of a confrontational mindset? You say, no, I deny this. It's not real. It's not for me.
Again, it's a very personal bias I think I have on this. If someone spoke to me like that, I'd be very triggered, and I wouldn't deal well with that at all.
If somebody said depression isn't real?
Yeah. If someone said to me like that my depression wasn't real, or
that's slightly different. So if somebody said the theoretical notion of depression isn't real, that's one level of personal. But if somebody said your depression isn't real, that's
but
pretty
I would
rude.
receive that as my depression isn't real.
Oh, you would receive it as my
yeah.
depression
So if someone
isn't real.
said to me depression isn't real, I'd go away and be like, they think my depression isn't real.
I'll show them.
I'll show you
I'll
depressed.
show them. Watch this.
So
that's just how I would take it. And I am also extremely mindful in terms of my client base. I'm very aware that I attract clients like myself, as do you, who also have a similar thought process to me. So I would be very careful with how I would go about looking at mental health. So similarly to you, I would probably create like an action plan of like what makes you feel safe, what makes you feel loved, what makes you feel positive, and harness those things in a structure to form a habit, routine, look at lifestyle. How
100%.
can we How can we look after ourselves better?
Routine and structure is the exact opposite of what the majority of people who come to me saying, oh, Danny, I'm depressed. When you peel back the onion skin and you look at their life, they don't have any routine, they don't have any ritual, they don't have any structure. All they do is focus on, like so intently, on how they don't want to feel. And if you focus on so hard on how you don't want to feel, how would you expect to feel any different?
I think that worked for my eating disorder as well, actually. You know, with my binge eating disorder, if I was thinking about not binging and the fear of binging, I would more than likely be binging because I'm thinking about it. I don't want to binge. I don't want to binge. And it overwhelmed me.
What do they call it? the white elephant or something.
It's like manifesting it, isn't
Don't think
it?
about a white elephant.
It's like an
All you do is think-
affirmation.
Yeah.
So it's the same the other way around. If you're thinking about depression all the time,
Yeah.
I feel like shit. I feel depressed.
So
it's
like
the emotional
looping,
literacy, isn't it?
You think you think that you're depressed, so you act depressed. Same motivation, same with willpower, same with courage, same with everything. If you label yourself as low motivation, you label yourself as I've got no confidence, I've got no this, that, and the other. Subconsciously, you're going to go, well, okay, no problem.
Yeah,
you keep
start to believe it.
telling me that we're depressed. How do depressed people act? What do they do on a daily basis? Right, okay, I'll do that then. So then you just form into this loop. Then you feel depressed, you act depressed, you feel depressed, you act depressed, you feel depressed. So it's breaking that loop with lifestyle intervention and saying, why don't we try this?
Yeah.
Interesting. So you said with the binge eating, what did you do instead of saying don't binge eat? What were you doing that worked?
So, I mean, I was thinking again about the things that I was enjoying, the things that was positive. I put in place an action plan for bedtime because evenings was my trigger time. So I had a little routine that I would do before bed, and it would include like a tea and stretching, yoga, something to make me feel safe because I was overtired and I recognized that. But I just focused on positive things throughout my day, making sure I did have a plan, a routine. I got up, I had a shower, all these things that were important for me to look after myself. So then by the evening, I didn't feel like worthless. I hadn't done anything. I hadn't achieved anything.
Yes.
I wasn't thinking about binging because I was too busy thinking about everything else. So there was no place in my mind for it.
Well, that sounds to me, therapy mode. That sounds to me like you were showing up for yourself at that moment. Like there was a real presence there. I do wonder with binge eating and wanting to feel full. A lot. So in my own life, I look at it and I'm like, what's the echo of that? What would that be like when you were a baby? Your mother fed you and you were full. So fullness was love.
Yeah.
With cocaine use, I'm like, what is it? What do you feel when you're on cocaine? You sort of feel like you're capable, you're confident, you're at the center of your own universe. Well, that would be an awful lot like being loved by your parents. So why do I want to be full? Maybe I didn't get that love. Why do I want to be high on, like, not just high on coke, but like glued to the fucking ceiling? Because I really intensely hunger for that experience. It's hunger.
Yeah.
It's a desire to fulfill something. And that's always made me wonder if, that's why I said like showing up for yourself, it's like a parent showing up for a child. Am I present to my own self? Am I lonely? Am I divided from myself? Because the way we love ourselves is the way our parents loved us. That's our model for loving ourselves. If you're divided from yourself, if you're alienated from your, because you might be, we might all be a bit alienated from ourselves.
I was for a long time.
Yeah, right. And that's what trauma does. It knocks you out of yourself. Especially if you can't fight back, if you can't run away and you can't negotiate, you get knocked out of yourself in a certain way. And being very full of food brings you back into yourself, but in a way that is pleasant because you're like, oh, you're numb, full of whatever it is that you've eaten. You're getting those brain chemicals released and it feels good. Cocaine's the same. Yeah. You're back to yourself in an artificial way. You're back in your body, but with all these drugs flowing through you. So that's, you mentioned the emotional literacy. How did that fit into the breaking the binge eating cycle?
It's being present.
Right.
So if I probably coach it similarly to what we did, but if you think about how you feel, most people would say it's one emotion. I just feel like shit. I just feel sad. When actually there's a million other emotions that are actually involved in that. Is it vulnerability? Do I feel scared? Am I nervous? Am I anxious? Am I don't know, whatever it is. There's a million other emotions that can be going on at that one time. So if you're just affirming the one emotion, I just feel depressed.
Yeah.
And you don't look at it any further.
Yes.
You're going to feel trapped by that one emotion.
Yes. It's a lack of nuance, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So understanding further, okay, I'm depressed, but also am I, what next? What next? And
what's
then that
behind the depression?
Yeah, exactly.
Am I
and then
sad? Am I disappointed?
Direct you further into your healing.
That other element of showing up for yourself like a parent for a child is, I just feel like shit. what does that sound? Again, I'm like, what's the echo of that? What does it sound like? It sounds dismissive. It sounds avoidant. That's a parent who doesn't want to listen to their child. The child's like, Mummy, I don't feel good. Oh, Mummy's fucking busy right now getting pissed. Go play. Oh, so when I feel bad, it doesn't matter, then becomes the internalized message for life. So then me, when I'm parenting myself, I feel bad. Well, fuck you, I'm busy. And I will make myself busy. I'll become a workaholic or whatever it is. So yeah, it's interesting trying to figure out where that lies. And when you mention the emotional literacy, when I get people to do the emotional literacy exercise, which I very rarely do because most people hate doing it, it is really for that. It's to build a bridge between you to you. Yeah. You have to sit there and go, how do I feel? Oh, I fucking hate this. Nah, we're not. No, come on. What is that? What is behind the hate? Are you disappointed? Are you sad? Are you angry? Are you resentful? Jealous? Whatever the specific emotion is. And then by addressing the specificity of the emotion, and writing it down, you're saying this matters. You're showing yourself this matters. The way I feel counts. And I think that's probably key to overcoming like binge eating, coke addiction, porn addiction, whatever. It's like, actually how you feel matters. You're gambling or watching porn or buying clothes you don't need. Because right now, in the moment that you're like in that weird, I've got to shove coke up my nose, I've got to buy stuff, you're in an altered state because you're lonely or you're just alienated from yourself in some way. Are you a fan of Andrew Tate? That wasn't a definite no, so you see some value in...
Yeah, I think there is. Some of the things that he says I do agree with, and then I see something else and he'll say something that I think, oh, you're a fucking knob.
What did he say that
Story of my life, that, Richard.
What did he say that you agree with? That women should be in burqas and convert to it? No, I'm joking. He didn't say that. He didn't say it. He has just converted to Islam.
No, it's one of those. Like I do. It's as if he's got the surface level right, and he can't quite back up the bullshit.
Right.
Like he's got good ideas, and then he'll just slip a little bit further, and he doesn't quite know what he's talking about, or he'll start offending people, and then.
Have you watched any of his longer form stuff, or have you just watched his
Not
short
really.
ones?
I've just seen short bits and bobs, and I just think I don't really want to engage with that any further.
Do you know what? In all honesty, you could probably, Jacob could probably do it. You could probably take a clip out of what we've said, like a 30-second clip, and people will be so fucking pissed off with what we said.
Oh, I will.
But then...
Please don't.
Why? Jeez,
why would you do that?
Jeez Louise.
The cancellation train just pulled into Liverpool. Just edit it the right way.
Do you know what I'm saying? Everything's in context. His short form stuff, I think, he says stuff and you go, fucking hell, mate.
Yeah.
You can't say that. But then you watch the long form, you watch him on Piers Morgan was a bad one, but you watch like a longer interview and you go, oh, okay, that actually makes sense now.
There are some things that he says in clip form that even with context.
Yeah, but they're designed to make you go, oh, what's this guy saying? And then they're designed for you to share with your mate and you to share with your mate.
Clickbait, isn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, of course it is,
I think that's actually a mistake on his part. And I would say it reflects a lack of confidence, which I understand because he is young. And some of the stuff, like I looked up today, what's the worst thing that Andrew Tate has ever said? And I went through all these different articles and I was like, Jesus Christ, some of this stuff is really not clever. Like you should not be saying stuff like this. And I know, I'm not going to defend it, but I know what he means and I know where he's coming from. And at the time, like one of the things was back in 2014 where he said, everybody who's been sexually assaulted has to take accountability for the fact they were sexually assaulted. And I'm like, that just doesn't, if you're in the room with him, you go, he must have been 26 or 25. You just say to him, hang on a second. Let's be logical, rational. Just, can you name a situation, Andrew, where that wouldn't apply? I'll give you fucking 10 seconds. We're writing a movie. Right, imagine a situation. And we'll be like, yeah, I can think of something within 10 seconds where that doesn't apply. Well, probably don't say it publicly then. Don't go out there into the world and say it. But he where I would say it reflects a lack of confidence is I agree with both of you that there's good stuff that he says. Like the attitude to life in some ways is what I think what we actually need. But it's not restrained, it's not filtered, it's not nuanced, it's not, the impulse control isn't there. But he is young, and I think he's a smart guy who did a stupid thing. And I think it's generational as well as being young. For the younger generational guys, I work with guys who are in their late 20s, early 30s. They think that trolling is a good way to do marketing. And I personally think it's always a mistake.
Yeah. 100%.
Because the amount of resentment, and he is trolling, like some of the stuff he said, he didn't believe, and he went way overboard. Some of the things are just badly thought through. Some of the things are off the cuff. Some of the things are there to deliberately provoke people as a form of marketing. The backlash, people remember. It's out there. So I went through because I was going, I haven't actually heard him say anything. The way he says it, I wouldn't say it. Some of the things are a bit bad, but it doesn't seem that bad. And then I went through a list of everything that he said that's bad. Some of the stuff that's on there is fucking terrible.
Yeah, he said some naughty stuff.
He said some really wild shit. Never needed to.
No.
Because he's smart enough and has good enough ideas, I think, to actually just be sincere and just be himself. And if he'd been patient, he wasn't going to get to the top as quickly as he did.
Because he went.
He was never going to be the most Googled man on earth that way, but just slowly, patiently.
Imagine being the most Googled man on the entire planet. That's some heavy flexing, that, isn't it?
But that's frightening.
You are the most Googled man on the planet.
That to me is frightening, because I know that there's clips that you could take from podcasts I've done years ago and interviews I've done years ago where I've said stuff that I just don't believe anymore. And if you pulled it up and took it out of context, it wouldn't sound misogynistic, but it would sound really naive. I'd sound kind of dumb.
100%.
Like really like somebody who hasn't had enough experience to be talking about that subject, which I think can come up a lot. On the whole, do you think an Andrew Tate should be rehabilitated and allowed back into the public space to speak, or not? What do you think?
Go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not? Freedom of speech.
Free speech
100%,
advocate.
yeah.
We're all allowed an opinion. We're all allowed to take.
Are we allowed to make mistakes in this
Yeah, we
culture?
are allowed to
We
make
should
mistakes.
be
We all
allowed to
do.
make mistakes,
Yeah.
right?
That's growing, isn't it? That's growth,
growing.
learning,
That's
development.
learning. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? I'm pretty much sure I know where you'd go with that.
Yeah, I think it's a very dangerous situation when someone is not allowed to speak.
Right.
Someone is completely cancelled, and they've cancelled him, and it doesn't seem to have made any difference, does it? He seems to have, if anything, he's gone bigger.
As I say, Mohammed, who does the manages all the YouTube videos, he lives in Dubai. Andrew's still in Dubai, and he went there 2 weeks ago and actually converted to Islam. And I was talking to Mohammed about it, and he says he believes it's a sincere conversion, but possibly would be part of like an overall character arc of rehabilitation, of going, okay, this is the life I was living, and this is what I was saying up until this point, and then coming back in the other side from it.
But he's still talking shit about people. That's not very Islam.
Is he?
Of him.
What's he saying?
But have you seen what he's been saying about True Geordie?
When did he say this?
Like
Couple of weeks. He fell out with True Geordie, didn't he? A couple of weeks ago, because True Geordie said something or did something, and Andrew Tate really didn't like it, and he wants to smash his head in.
He was saying he was fat, saying he was gay. He was like kink shit. Like, I'm sure that's not very Muslim of him.
It's haram.
Yeah.
Haram.
And also, he can't punch True Geordie because he's made of bacon.
I think he was just trying to get.
That's racist, actually. Isn't that racist if you call white people bacon? Sorry, white people.
Wow.
Look, I'm pink. I can say what I want.
Look at that screen.
Look at the screen.
We're both pink.
Pink. Bacon.
What am I?
Pale.
Yeah.
You're pale and interesting.
Ghost.
Look at
Ghost.
Danny is pink.
I am pink.
Look at you.
Hi.
Pinky winky.
I took a turn.
Okay, folks, if you want to ask us a question, we're going to wrap up in about, we're going to wrap up within the next 5 minutes. We've gone very much over time. Are you okay to do another 5?
Yeah, we're fine.
You're
Yeah.
fine?
This will be interesting.
Ask us a question, make it one sentence long, have it end in a question mark, and we will answer it. Jacob, I had a time shift there, mate. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I was laughing at the question mark part because that's how I find your questions. 'Cause
Oh, really?
they're mostly,
Yeah, Jacob will not pull up statements. You know, we don't want to read your essay from high school that your teacher didn't like. Ask a question and have it end in a question mark. That would be much appreciated. And the pink trio will try and do it. Vera, yes, we actually we did cover suicide earlier in the discussion, and we looked at that from various different angles. If you watch this back once it's been edited, it will be re-uploaded, and then you'll be able to see that particular section. Hit us with another, Jakob.
More statements.
More statements.
No more questions.
That's a shame. Any more questions, folks? If you could have it end in a question mark, that would be.
Have you heard about what happened with Kanye West?
What has happened with Kanye West?
Do you not know?
I've seen.
Hasn't
many...
he said something anti-Semitic or something like that? And Adidas have told him he's slowly losing all his stuff, isn't he?
Yeah, everybody's like burned their bridges with him.
Yeah.
He's went on like an anti-Semitic rampage.
Something like he went on a big rant, didn't he?
We should talk about it next Friday.
A proper Kanye rant.
I have seen Lex Friedman interview him and try to get him to be specific with his anti-Semitic remarks. Kanye is seriously mentally ill.
Oh yeah.
There's no doubt.
Serious narcissist as well.
A Naziist?
Narcissist.
Oh, narcissist. Yeah, no, I don't think he's.
You know that word. We have more questions.
Yep. Making sweeping statements about the negative attributes of groups of people based on their religion or their ethnicity just is, apart from being uncool, it's dumb. It's just dumb. It's not scientific. You're not looking at the data. Mandy asks, what makes you laugh these days, Emily?
What makes me laugh? Oh, loads. I'm laughing all day long. You'll hear my cackle from the other side of the gym.
I do. Emily is literally laughing the whole time. I can echolocate her in the gym.
Like a dolphin.
Like that, like a dolphin. I know where she is because it's coming out at 2 to 5 minute long intervals. What makes you laugh, Dan?
People falling over.
Yeah, you like that. Fall down.
I don't care who it is, young, old. Yeah. If someone falls over in front of me,
that makes you laugh.
I'm in bits. Yeah.
Yeah.
The codependent in me is like, have you hurt yourself? Are you okay? Do you need help?
God, no.
Yeah.
I can't. And I don't even hide it. I'll literally. I love it.
Yeah, there's a lot that makes me laugh these days. There's all kinds of mad stuff going on in the world. What would be, Jamie asks, what would be a starting point to conquer a lack of motivation? Well, you have the right people to answer that question here. Emily, go first, please. Conquering a lack of motivation, where would you start?
So motivation and discipline come into play together. I would say plan of action. Start with a routine. It depends what you're not motivated to do.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
If it's like going to train, then it's penciling them into your diary and making it like an appointment. So, but yeah, it depends on what it is that you're not motivated to do.
Yeah,
Danny,
it depends what it is that you're motivated to do.
Nice.
Once you do know what it is that you want to do, get clarity on what you have to do. What's the first step that you can take? The tiniest step that you can take. And then momentum will then build motivation. The problem is people tend to sit around and they wait for motivation to come to them, when the reality is we create it ourselves by moving, by gaining some form of momentum. But get clarity on what it is that you actually want first.
I love this. Being a Piscean and a psychologist, I'm going to add the emotional element to it. If it's an emotionally charged thing and you feel really good about the vision for the thing that you're trying to do, the emotion will lead you forward. Like motivation is another way of saying I feel good in my body about moving towards this thing, this experience, this scenario. So that's the wet side of it.
There's quite a lot. Do you have any here that you want me to pull up?
Did you say jam?
I'll have some jam.
No,
I would like some jam.
There's quite a lot of questions here. Do
Yeah.
you see any that you want me to pull up?
What would be?
I can't see any of them. Can you?
Hit Will. Let's do Will Softmore because he started with question.
Okay, question.
How you really feel about me? About my own diamonds? And you got the same thought, do you?
It is, yeah.
It's a generational
It's almost
thing.
like we're one and the same.
Question. Free speech should be a basic right, but with narcissists, surely depriving them of supply.
There you go.
Like, are narcissists are human beings too?
You can have free speech. No, not you.
Not you, though.
No.
You have a psychiatric condition brought on by childhood trauma, so fuck you.
Semi-free.
Is perhaps the only way to hold them accountable. What?
Because they have no humility, doubt, or remorse.
Don't bring your personal resentment with your bird here. If it's free speech, that means it's for everyone, mate. That means it's got to be for everybody, even when they're saying things that you don't like, and even if you don't like them personally, and even if you know that they're a hateful, horrible human being. You know, like, I'm a free speech absolutist. I want to know where the hate mongers are. I want to know what they're saying. So let them talk so that they can be monitored and put into the gulag later. What do you guys think?
Exactly that.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I think freedom of speech is for everyone.
Yeah.
Even if you hate them and you hate their ideas.
Even if it's painful.
Listen.
Yeah.
Don't listen.
Yeah, exactly. Don't
Put
listen.
your fingers in your ears.
Yeah. Is there a connection between the rise of feminism and depression in men? Says Michael
He's hid his name so well.
Nobody's going to figure that one out.
No one's going to figure that out, Michael.
You're on the sly, kid. Is there a connection between the rise of feminism and depression in men? Emily, what do you think? Why is feminism so evil, Emily?
Next.
What do you think, Danny? Feminism caused depression in men?
I don't think it's caused it, but I think it's possibly got something to do with it.
By feminism, do you mean the academic study of feminism in universities? Because I highly doubt that's creating depression in men, unless, like me, they were forced to study it. No, I studied it. I studied it willingly. That was one thing I wasn't forced to do. I studied feminism willingly as a module in
willingly,
willy-nilly.
What?
Willy. The merest mention of a willy, and look at him. He's a grown man. He has children, and this is how he is when I say willy.
Willies.
It's not time for willies. We're talking feminism.
Okay.
Phallocentric, you see. That's the phallocentric patriarchy in action. Next question, please. Willies. Why are you giggling?
Because you just said willies.
Do you want like narcissism-based ones?
Go ahead. Thank you, Sierra. Have you ever heard of a person never recovering from a narcissistic abusive relationship? Yes. Yes, I have. It's look up Sam Vaknin, prolonged grief syndrome. It's something that as the awareness of narcissism and narcissistically abusive relationships grows, I hope, and will happen, more therapists will become aware of the very real danger of a person who's been in a narcissistically abusive relationship never recovering because they've developed prolonged grief syndrome and they simply can't work their way out of the shared fantasy. Mr. Wilson, why are you laughing at the pain?
You're reading the comments, aren't you?
Someone's just written Willie on the comments.
I won't have this. I won't have it. He laughs at Willie. I say Willie, and you're all saying it back.
That's why I'm here, to mediate things.
Such a child.
I specifically brought Emily here to stop. There's a certain level of testosterone that just becomes, you just descend into silliness, isn't it? And we don't moderate, we don't stop each other. We don't. There's no stopping it. Any other question at all? Take one at random, Jacob. Don't worry about the quality of the question. This is for you guys. Joanna Long asked, do you agree that with some people, they do need to do the deep work in order to get out of a rut? What do you think, Emily?
I mean, I believe that for everyone, really. I think we all have to do the deep work, whether you feel like you're fully in a rut or not. There's always deep work that we should all be doing. So, yeah, definitely.
Depends how deep the rut is, and it depends how deep the work is. Depends what your definition of deep work is. For some people, deep work could literally be changing one thing. But if people believe that they have all their ducks in a row, deep work might be a lot deeper. So again, there's a lot of very, very situation, very, very person dependent questions coming out.
I nothing against you, Joanna, but when I'm online a lot, and most of my work is online, and there is this online mental health culture, online therapy culture, and so when people talk about doing the work or doing deep work, it means very different things to very different people. And I can't tell you how many clients I've had where I've sat there and I've started to work with them, and in session one, they start to have not a tantrum, but they get really like wound up. They're like, I've already done the work on this. And I'm like, what did the work look like? There's literally nothing here. It would be like, you claiming to have done physio on an atrophied muscle. The physiotherapist knows there's like, you can't blag it. The muscle's still atrophied. There's nothing that's been done here. So there's a lot of wheel spinning that can happen that people think of as being work. I'm not saying this to you, Joanna. I'm talking generally. There's a lot of fake work that can get done. Talking about a problem is not doing the work. Is really not. I'm not an advocate for just talking endlessly around problems. There must be an action plan. You have to get into what's going to come next. And without emotional literacy and grieving, I'm not convinced that anybody's doing anything that would be what I would consider to be deep work.
Will's kicking off.
Well, come on, Will.
That was before we actually asked it.
Go on then.
He's kicking off. He said, "Why wasn't my question answered?" I think we did answer his question.
We did.
Oh, we did.
And then he went, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Will.
Sorry about that, lad.
Sorry, Will.
Sorry, Will.
Sorry, lad.
It's our fault. You're on the VIP tonight, though, lad.
Thanks for answering my
Come down here. Daniel sort your house. He's on the mosquito tonight.
When are you coming to Scotland, Grannon?
Grannon, that's you on your own. We're not coming.
Why would I go to Scotland, Gibson?
Can I come?
Gibbo. Gibbo, indeed.
There's no imminent plans to go to Scotland. I used to live in Scotland. Not many people know that. My stepfather is Scottish. I used to live in East Kilbride. Beautiful place full of wonderful people.
What else have we got?
What do you suggest one does? For in the
who?
She asked the past question as well, didn't she?
She did.
What was her first question?
It was to do with stuff.
Sarah,
do the thing.
I don't remember your first question.
About the deep work, I think.
I think it was the deep work.
What
do you suggest one
that
does?
was a different lady about the deep
Was
work.
it?
Yeah, Sierra was...
I'll try and find...
There she is.
Hold
Truth
on.
Matters.
Hold on.
No. That's another one.
We didn't read that one yet.
No.
Oh, my God. Calm down, Ty.
She's on fire with these questions.
She is, yeah.
She's hammering us with them. Thanks, Ty. Appreciate that.
What about this one?
Okay. Do you think you can still have good mental health without exercise? Well, what do you guys think?
Yes, of course you can.
Yeah, I think you can. I think movement is important to be able to move your body.
What's exercise? Is exercise going for a walk? Is exercise going to the gym?
Yeah.
I know people that don't go to the gym and they are perfectly happy, perfectly stable, mental health, everything's fine.
Yeah.
Because they've got meaningful connections, they've got purposeful work, they've got a good diet, they've got the sleep in order. You don't have to exercise.
I think if you're bedridden, then probably not. Or if you're just sat on your arse all the time and body starts to hurt.
Yeah. I've always avoided talking about it on this channel for years because of the fear of being labelled ableist. I'd lean away from what you guys just said. I'd lean more towards saying, no, you must be moving because your body and your mind is one unit. Don't know what exercise is to you.
That's it. It depends what exercise is. Exercise to Emily is lifting heavy weights. Exercise to Sarah might be walking around the block.
Yeah.
You just don't know, dear.
You're one thing. Your body and mind is one unit. You should move. I'm going to dance afterwards, for example.
The pink-haired lady's voice is soothing. What about the
Do you know what? I've been
pink-faced
told
gentleman?
that before. I've been told that I should do like meditations.
Really? Mm-hmm. Do you not meditate?
Oh, as in like voicing.
Oh, I see. A voice meditation.
Yeah, as in like, yeah.
Yeah.
The pink-haired lady.
We are happy.
That's good.
That's quality.
That's good. The pink-haired lady.
The lady, the one with the pink hair.
Not the pink-faced man.
Yeah. Not this guy.
The pink-faced man's voice is aggravating. The pink-haired lady's voice is soothing.
Rousing.
A couple more, Jacob, and then we should probably all go to
There was
our
a nice
respective
one about
destinations.
menopause, but it was further up.
Oh, dear.
I did see.
No, I can't search.
You can't search the comments. Oh, that's a shame.
Is there anything you see,
Bonnie
feel free
lassie,
to-
will ye gang and share with me? That's me singing in Scots. That's what I'll do when I'm next up in Scotland. I will sing in Scots.
In a kilt?
I have worn a kilt. Have you ever worn a kilt?
No.
What is Danny's views on procrastination and how one can snap out of such vicious circle of cruel suffering?
What is Danny's views on procrastination? Personally, I don't think procrastination is a thing. I think procrastination is just an excuse for not doing the work. And how can one snap out of such a vicious circle of cruel suffering?
Cold shower and nipple twist.
Yeah, face slapping, toe stubbing. Yeah, procrastination. I think the more you tell people that you procrastinate, the less chance you've got of actually doing what you are procrastinating about. Again, it's. I believe it's just another label that you give yourself. Oh, I'm a terrible procrastinator. All I ever do is procrastinate. You're just not doing the work. And how does one snap out of such a vicious circle of cruel suffering? I guess it depends on what you're suffering with.
Emily?
I feel like I do procrastinate with a lot of things.
Liar.
But mine manifests in a different way. So my procrastination, it happens a lot before I go to bed. So I'll do something to avoid going to sleep. But I know that's
Why would you not want to go to sleep?
It's my subconscious trying to give me back time that I feel like I haven't had for myself throughout the day.
That's actually called revenge nighttime procrastination.
Yes, I know. And that exists. So I feel like procrastination, it depends on where it's manifesting as to how you action, how to feel safe enough to do the thing that you're avoiding doing. Like why do you feel that you can't do it, or why are you self-sabotaging in that area?
Yeah. What are you doing? What are you doing instead that you value more? Because you're going to do what you value more. If you're procrastinating about getting up and cleaning up the water behind us, or just sat here talking, then you value one more than the other, and you're always going to do what you value more, right? Mm-hmm. Pabs.
Pabs. It reminds me of the neuro-linguistic programming days, where they would talk about procrastination and motivation, and they get into motivation strategies, and they would say, so the NLP answer to that would be, when it's time for you to go to bed and you don't want to imagine being in bed and the feeling of the sheets around your body and how comfortable it's going to be when you get into bed.
I like NLP.
You lose consciousness.
I found that question, Emily.
You did it for me then.
Oh, you did?
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
Great.
It's been menopause awareness recently. Do you think hormonal imbalances are misdiagnosed as depression?
Yes.
There's just no doubt. There's just no
Absolutely. I coach quite a few women that are going through the menopause. I'm actually about to do a course as well, which is female coaching further into menopause and things around that. And I know that doctors are just labeling the symptoms of menopause or perimenopause as depressive episodes in women, whereas in the perimenopausal ages, we should be harnessing that hormonal imbalance, then finding out what's changing, and that will help the symptoms because it's perimenopause and not actually depression.
Interesting. I've had a couple of conversations with my sister. She's had two babies, and about for her the experience, like mentally, emotionally, what was happening as she went through the pregnancy and then after the pregnancy, and because she's experienced it, she's gone through it twice, and she's pretty psychologically literate. She had a lot to say about it, and I was like, you really probably should put some information out there, because if you're not told, if nobody's going to say to you, hey, this is the time where you're going to feel like shit, or at this point you could feel anxious, or at this point you might be dealing with some depression. One of the mental health, the psychological models that we work with that is faulty is, if you feel depressed, Emily, there's a problem with you and your mind.
Yeah.
Not like your body or circumstances or chemical imbalances or hormonal imbalances. Sorry, that's generally not considered. It's this brutal grafting on of the medical model, which is, if you have a physical problem, then it's in you because it's your body, of course. But the psychological problems, it doesn't map. We've tried to map it on top as though it's the same as a physical thing, a physical pathology. We could do one more, Jacob, and then we'll call it a night.
What are your thoughts on empathy burnout given the current national climate?
Richard.
Hello.
Hi there.
My empathy is endless because I'm a codependent. I think empathy burnout and compassion burnout I usually associate with dealing with borderline personality disorder. And I think that at the national climate, if you're talking about this nation, the United Kingdom, how borderline has it become is an interesting question as a collective. I think there's we talk narcissism, and we talk about a culture of narcissism quite a lot, but I would say that probably our culture maps closer to borderline personality disorder than to narcissistic personality disorder. And so if you do have a lot of people, if there's a big cultural weight of people moving in a direction, then yes, it will create empathy burnout if those around the people who are demanding empathy get tired. I want empathy. I want compassion. You must give it to me or else. These are some of the coordinates of the more woke elements, the woke ideology or so-called woke ideology that we're dealing with at the moment. Which is exploding, and hopefully the wave is passing. I hope in that kind of cultural climate that we do have within this nation, yes, there will be empathy burnout, there will be compassion burnout. I am worried because when that manifests politically, if you look historically, typically that heralds a swing to the right and the extreme right, where we don't bother with empathy and compassion anymore. And it's all about survival of the fittest and the individual and what the strongest can do. And then it's fuck the unemployed, fuck people who are disabled, fuck people who are workers. You know, if you don't want to live in that world, you want to live in a world of balance between yin and yang. And I'm very worried that we could swing the wrong way. What do you guys think about empathy burnout?
It's not really my thing, so I'm probably shouldn't comment on
I'm going to
it.
show you nothing about that.
I'm going to take the Fifth Amendment, lad.
Have you ever experienced empathy burnout, Emily?
I think so, probably in my earlier coaching days, because I would codependently want to help my clients to the nth, and I would burn myself out with that.
Okay.
And I would literally keep myself awake at night if my client had a problem, and I'd be like, how can I fix it? What can I do? How can I solve it?
Yeah.
So with the current national climate, is that meaning like
Could mean
the
weather. Yeah, the
Income.
literal weather.
energy bills,
so
all that
cold.
kind of thing, maybe?
Could be.
I don't
Could
know.
be.
I don't
Yeah.
quite know the context of that, but yeah.
Could be interpreted in many ways.
Yeah.
Wow, we have covered an awful lot of topics here.
This has been a thing of beauty.
It's been a roller coaster.
It's
Emotional.
been a
Emotionally,
roller coaster of emotions, lad.
spiritually. Thank you so much to my guests, Emily and Daniel. Emily, where can they find you if they want to find you on the internet?
Instagram is at psychedemily, same as last time, same as it always has been.
Psyched Emily on Instagram. Mr. Wilson, where can they find you?
Wherever they want to.
If they just say your name in the mirror 3 times, do you appear?
And I will
behind them?
appear like Shazam. Danny Wilson Coaching on YouTube, Danny Wilson on Facebook, and my Instagram is, what's the line at the bottom? It's an underscore, isn't it?
I think the kids call it an underscore, Danny. You know,
Danny,
yeah, lads.
Danny _ Wilson _
Coaching.
_
If you stalk my
Far
Instagram,
too many underscores.
if you stalk my Instagram, you'll find them in my following. That I'm following them both. So if you put Psyched or Emily, she'll pop up, or Danny, it'll pop up. So give them a follow there. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and your attention today, and we look forward to seeing you again next week here from Liverpool Podcast Studios, live and direct. Cheers.